Hey guys, this is the brand new Samyang 24-70mm F2.8 autofocus lens for the Sony E-mount cameras. Yes, this is the first autofocus Sony zoom lens made by Samyang. Thank you Samyang for sending us the lens for review, but we're not paid to say anything besides our own opinions, and Samyang does not get to see this video before it is published. Let's get straight to the point. This lens is sharp, like very sharp throughout its focal range. We tested on the Sony a7 III, which has a 24 megapixel sensor, and we're getting a ton of details with the camera set to almost auto completely and sharpness set to 0. We did not want to fiddle with the settings so you know how the lens performs if nothing has changed. We are also showing you all the raw photos straight out of camera so you can imagine editing it to your liking. Some people like it tack sharp and some people might want a softer image. We just want to let you be the judge. We did a photo walk with my friends and I really enjoyed using the lens. Keep in mind this is a pre-production lens, but you should be able to get the general idea of its performance. I'm not a big fan of pixel peeping, but I will try to zoom in on some of the images so you can see how sharp the Samyang 24-70 F2.8 is. Personally, I try not to crop my photos too much, but I think 24 megapixels on the Sony a7 III with this lens definitely give me enough sharpness for, I would say, maximum 30% crop, which I'm very happy with. By looking at the images, you can see that the lens is super sharp even when it is wide open at f2.8. It is sharp throughout the center and corners. I'm not too picky when it comes to corner sharpness, but you don't really have to worry about that with this lens. The next thing that most people care about is probably the bokeh and background rendition. Since this is a zoom lens at f2.8, the background is reasonably blurred out when you get close enough to the subject. I think f2.8 is a great aperture for portrait photography because you know that the person's face will be in focus instead of having one eye in focus and the other blurred out. That's pretty much a trade-off we have to accept when comparing a zoom lens with faster primes. But to be honest with you, I haven't been using a zoom lens for a while, but the convenience of being able to change focal length and create different looks is definitely worth getting a zoom lens like this one. For the bokeh, I'm very surprised that the bokeh balls don't get too busy with onion rings or cat eyes even at the edge of the frame. Those two are the most distracting things to me when it comes to bokeh balls. They are nice and round with this lens. The only thing you might notice that there is still a very thin halo ring on the outside of the bokeh balls, but it is not that distracting to me. Overall, I'm very pleased with the bokeh of the Samyang 24-70mm F2.8 lens. This lens is definitely good enough for most of the users. There are two things you need to know when it comes to image quality of the Samyang 24-70 F2.8. There is noticeable chromatic aberrations and barrel distortions. For chromatic aberrations, you will be able to see the purple fringing in our photo samples. Again, all photos are unedited RAWs, but you can easily correct them in post. It is easy to correct chromatic aberrations in photos, but it is not as easy in videos. Luckily, the chromatic aberration is not too bad on this lens, so I won't worry too much about it. For barrel distortions, yes, especially at 24mm, is pretty significant. It gets much better at around 35mm, almost no distortion, and then it turns into a cushion type of distortion when you zoom in more at 50mm and 70mm. Yes, it can be corrected in post, but remember, you will be losing some part of the image by correcting the distortion, and also it takes time. To me, I don't really mind the barrel distortion because it depends on what kind of look you're trying to create. Sometimes you want that little fish eye effect, but I'm just not a big fan of the cushion distortion. The next big thing I want to talk about is autofocus. It is fast. Definitely fast enough for things like portrait photography and even street photography. Face and eye tracking autofocus work fine on the Sony a7 III. It did lose on fast-moving subject from time to time, but I think that is because of the camera. So it might not be the most ideal for sports photography, but the focal length might not be long enough anyway. This lens is also very quiet when it tries to autofocus. This is where the quality really comes in. I can't really hear or feel the autofocus motor moving at all. So if you're looking for a quiet lens, this is a pretty good choice. Since we're talking about autofocus, let's talk about the video side. With Sony's amazing autofocus capability, autofocus tracking is definitely not a problem on the Samyang 24-70. I'm very happy with the performance. When it comes to focus breathing, it is very well controlled on both the wide and zoom ends. It is definitely better than a lot of lenses on the market. If you're trying to manually focus with this lens, the first thing you will appreciate is the well-dampened focus ring. It has enough resistance that will help you to achieve a smooth focus pull. Also, the focus rotation is pretty big, which is going to help with a smooth focus pull as well. The only downside is that it is a focus by wire lens and it is missing hard stops on the focus ring. So it is not easy for repeating focus pull. But remember, this is an autofocus photo lens first. Samyang really wants to make this lens a do-it-all photo and video lens because they even made this lens parfocal, which is very impressive. Parfocal means when you focus on an object at one focal length, it will stay in focus even when you zoom in or out. It is a very useful and hard to find feature unless it is a very expensive cine zoom lens. The minimum focus distance of this lens is about 1 foot at 24mm and a little bit over 1 foot at 70mm. Not bad at all. I totally didn't expect the minimum focus breathing and parfocal capability. A very good job to Samyang. Let's talk about the build quality of the Samyang 24-70. It is extremely well built with full metal construction. You know that this lens is going to be durable. Compared to the Tamron 28-75, which is made out of plastic, the Samyang lens feels much more premium. When I first received the lens, I was so shocked because with all the metal constructions, this is a very heavy lens. It will make your setup pretty front heavy, but I don't mind it for the better build quality. We're also very happy to find a rubber gasket on the mount of this lens, so that means that this lens will have some level of weather resistance, and that is amazing. Besides a really well dampened focus ring, the zoom ring is also well dampened, and it is definitely on the tighter side. I really enjoy it because you won't be changing focal length accidentally and the lens will not creep out at all when it is pointing down. This is a lot better than a loose zoom ring. About the lens hood, it has a 4 leaves design similar to the Sony G Master one and it is made out of plastic. Same thing with the lens caps. When it comes to design, this is a very nice looking lens. If I don't show you the brand name, you might think that it is a GM lens. With the matte black finish and the orange ring that matches with the Sony orange, it is one good looking lens to use. One thing to keep in mind about the Samyang 24-70 is the filter size. As I said, it is a very big lens and yep, the filter size is also the biggest at 82mm. I do use 82mm filters, so it is not a problem for me, but you might need to start looking at your filters at home if you are planning to get this lens. There is also a switch on the lens that says custom mode 1 and 2. I'm still trying to figure out what it does because it doesn't really do anything when I was using the lens. I am pretty sure this lens does not have stabilization, but I will find out more information from Samyang and hopefully I will be able to include it in this video. To be honest with you, if I'm a Sony user, I will definitely consider getting this lens because 24-70mm on a full frame camera pretty much covers 80% of the focal length I need in one lens. Being able to zoom in and out without changing lenses and with such great sharpness makes it a no-brainer for me to get this lens. At the moment of making this video, we don't know the retail price of the lens yet, but we will definitely include it once we have the information. The major competitors of this lens are Sigma 24-70 and Tamron 28-75 because they are the main budget options. The G Master 24-70 is just too expensive at $2,200. If they priced it between the Tamron and the Sigma lens at around $1,000, I will definitely get this lens over the Tamron and Sigma. It has a lot higher build quality compared to Tamron and great sharpness even compared to Sigma lenses. That's it. Those are my thoughts on the Samyang 24-70mm F2.8 lens for Sony. I am very impressed by this lens and I'm totally going to recommend this lens for any Sony users. Maybe this lens will make me go back to Sony, so stay tuned. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Will you consider getting this lens? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.